If you've tried using AI content but keep feeling as if your content falls flat on its face, there's a reason for that. And it's not because AI can't write well. It's because you are missing one simple framework that makes all the difference in the world. I've helped businesses transform stale AI generated text into content that feels authentic, personal, and engaging without rewriting everything from scratch. In this video, I want you to have the same ability. You'll learn the new way to humanize AI content so it feels natural and relatable. I'm also going to break down a simple process that can help you keep all the benefits of AI. Think about speed, scalability, and efficiency while making your writing sound just like you. Here's how we're going to break it down. First, I'm going to show you why most AI content feels very robotic and the common mistake that everyone makes when generating text. Next, we'll dive into a step-by-step framework that you can apply today to instantly make your AI writing feel more personal and even engaging. And finally, I will reveal one critical adjustment that most people simply miss when editing AI content. And this is kind of the game changer that instantly makes your content stand out from the noise. Let's start with the real problem with AI content and why it feels robotic. So AI generates text based on patterns, not emotions or storytelling. This isn't any big surprise, but despite many people understanding this fact, they still expect AI to give them that storytelling aspect, that creative output that they want. However, AI tools rely on data patterns to predict the next word, and this means that they don't rely on creativity. If you are taking the output and not doing anything with it, this will lead to bland, formulaic type of writing that lacks depth. And the worst part about all this is that many people, or most people, copy the output directly. They don't add any personalization to it. And this is a very common mistake. Using the first draft from an AI without revisions will result in content that feels generic and impersonal. So, what is the solution to this? Solution is authentic content. And when you think about authentic content, it feels like a conversation. It's not a data dump. And real engagement comes from human connections, not just passing along information. So, for example, if you start a story with this article will explain dot dot dot. It's very robotic, right? But if I say by the end of this, I'll share with you exactly what I have learned. So that simple language change will make it immediately more human. So that's the first point to consider. Now, let me give you the step-by-step framework to humanize AI content. And these are kind of steps that you can follow in order to get your articles, your content to be more human. The first step is to add personal anecdotes or relatable experiences. So if I go to my screen here, let's just write a story that feels very AI generated. Keep it to 4 paragraphs. So here we have in the gleaming metropolis of near Tokyo, Sardo Okay, yeah, it feels very AI generated. The message contained what she had feared. Her human emotion simulator was operating, so this is literally giving us an AI based story. Okay, let's try this again. Right. I mean, the content shouldn't sound like it's human written, but written only 100% through an LLM. So let's try this. The cat walked across the floor with elegance and grace. It was a beautiful day outside with birds chirping melodiously in the trees. The sun shone brightly. Yesterday was different. The small dog was from the corner. All the beings in the house existed in a state of peaceful coexistence. So there's a lot of complicated words as well. So what if we could include an anecdote or something that could be a relatable experience? So I want to include a couple of relatable experiences to get the reader to resonate with my content. Do this at the beginning. You know the feeling when you're trying to find your keys in the morning and they've completely vanished? Or when you're staring at your phone waiting for an important text? These relatable moments define our daily human existence. The cat walked across the floor with elegance and grace. Okay. So what it's not doing is connecting the relatable experience with the actual story. So connect the relatable experience with the story. Don't mention that this is a relatable experience. Let's try again. The sound of keys jingling in your coat pocket suddenly stops you as you pat yourself down in a panic. They disappeared just like they did over morning. As you frantically search, your phone buzzes with the text you've been waiting for. The cat walks across the floor with elegance and grace, completely uninterested in your morning chaos. It was a beautiful day outside, with the birds chirping melodiously in the trees. The weather changed. So potentially what we want is something that connects this part better with this part. But even just by starting with this unrelated section, the sounds of the keys jingling, the lost keys, that is immediately an anecdote, a relatable experience that puts the user in that frame. So don't be afraid to share stories. Don't be afraid to mention personal experience related to the topic. So let's say we're speaking about using AI for content writing. You can say, when I first tried using AI for content, it felt so flat, I almost gave up. So let's see if we can make this even better to illustrate this point. So here we have this paragraph. So in the first paragraph, I want you to use the first person to make it even more relatable. Also tie it more to the cat walking across the floor. I'm, fran- I'm frantically patting down my coat pockets as the familiar jingling of keys suddenly stops. Why does that happen every single morning? My phone buzzes, finally, the text I've been waiting for. But now, my keys are more important. Through all of this, my cat just saunters across the floor with an elegant grace. So one thing I don't like here is the fact that it's using this complex language. Now, obviously, it depends on the type of writing you're doing, but change the output to FK level 4. And if you're not aware, FK level writing is this flash reading ease, where if you're going with a grade 4, which is where um, election, what was it, like election speech, FK level 2024. Pretty sure that I was reading an article where Trump's speech was like at an FK 3 or 4. So using simple language that everyone can understand. So I lose my keys every morning when I try to leave for school. My phone just got a text, but I can't look yet. I need those keys. My cat Tommy walks by me super slow, not caring at all about my problem. The sun is bright and the birds sing outside. Tommy just sits in the warm light on the floor, happy as can be. Now, obviously, this is, I guess, way too simplified. But what if let's make it, or let's keep it at the same level, but change the person to John, who's just about to go to work. John's a CEO. John fumbles for his car keys, already 10 minutes late for the board meeting. His phone lights up with urgent emails, but those keys are nowhere. His cat Winston glides past his expensive suit pants, totally unbothered. The sun streams through his penthouse window while birds chirp outside. So, not bad. I potentially would go through this and still change some of the words, like his cat glides past him. The sun streams through his penthouse, so there's still a bit of complex language, but it's much better than it was before. The next thing, in order to humanize your article, is to draw from your or client wins. So don't be afraid to share transformations or lessons learned from real life projects. And this works because personal stories make the content feel authentic and memorable. For example, in this case, if we were to include something like a case study, but that fits within this story, and maybe this is a bit of a stretch, but let's see. John owns JetPoint Dynamics, which has grown 200% since he became CEO last year. Today's board meeting will showcase Q4 results. Okay, so now we're giving more context to the story. I guess a case study is more context in this case. The bright morning fills the luxury apartment, making everyone feel optimistic about the 10 a.m. presentation. Okay, so it's not really the case that we can use a case study in the traditional sense of the word, but we can still mention data if that is kind of our audience, which makes the story again more relatable. So next, number two, or step two, is to create or ask questions that create engagement. These questions have one aim, and it is to spark curiosity. So you can use rhetorical questions that pull in the viewers into the content. For example, ever felt like your writing was missing something, but you couldn't figure out what? So let's start with a question here. Ever wondered why your writing sounded robotic, but couldn't figure out what? So let's turn this into something that applies in the above context. So let's use that. As I didn't say is start with this. Ever wondered why your business reports felt mechanical? John did too. As CEO of JetPoint Dynamics, which has grown 100% since last year, his memos needed that human touch. So, starting with a question, it makes the reader get into the content a bit more. And if you can then have that situation where the reader can relate, it is even better. So we started with a story, which started here. It was quite robotic in the sense that there was no humanity to it. And so far, we've gotten to this stage. So these are all things that you can do to make the story better. Now, another thing, which is kind of in a way the opposite of the asking a question, is encouraging reflection. So the questions you ask should be framed in a way that prompts the audience to self-reflect. Think about this type of question. What if you could make your AI writing feel natural without any extra effort? And essentially, this works because questions like these create a dialogue like experience for the viewer. And when you're having a dialogue, that is when, again, it's a human experience, right? People have conversations. When you have this type of dialogue with your audience, that leads to the content being more humane. So add reflective questions throughout the article to make it like we're having a dialogue with the reader. Ever felt trapped by robotic business writing? John did too. As CEO of JetPoint Dynamic, which has grown 100% since last year, his memos needed that human touch. Have you noticed how cold corporate language pushes people away? John fumbles for his key, already 10 minutes late for the meeting. Ever had that sinking feeling when you can't find something crucial? His phone lights up with urgent emails about marketing projections, all written in that same stiff corporate voice. His cat Winston glides past his expensive suit pants, totally unbothered. Don't we all wish we all had that feline confidence? So maybe now it's gone a bit overboard, right? And it's inserting these types of questions after every sentence, like every other sentence has a question. So we can reduce the occurrence of these reflective questions. Don't you all wish you had that confidence? When was the last time corporate writing made you feel something? So there's a bit less questions of those, which is good. Number 3 is to break text into shorter conversational sentences. Simplifying sentence structure where you avoid long, complex sentence is important. So instead of saying AI tools generate content by predicting the next logical word using extensive data patterns, you can say something like AI tools guess the next word based on data patterns. So it's much simpler, it's more straight to the point, and it's not like you are getting a reader to have to read all this chunks of text, right? So can you break down these sentences into something that's more readable? Also, use line breaks every 1 to 2 sentences. Okay. Ever felt trapped by stiff business writing? John did too. A CEO of JetPoint Dynamics' company grew to 300% in 1 year, but his most needed to sound more human. John searches for his car keys. He's late for the board meeting. His phone keeps lighting up. More robotic emails about market numbers. It's much easier to read this than it is to read these huge paragraphs. So use line breaks as needed in order to provide the right emphasis. This goes for paragraphs, goes for sentences, and one thing I like doing is to use one line paragraphs for important points. And this works because shorter sentences feel easier to read, and even more importantly, they feel more conversational. So if we look here, that is a reflective question that you want the reader to read and think about. So it is right at its own line. We have potentially here. This could be its own paragraph as well. But today, the sun's out and the stock's recovered. So don't be afraid to have shorter or very short type of paragraphs. The next thing is to inject personality through specific word choices and storytelling elements. You should use your unique voice, where you essentially write like you speak. For example, replace "it is crucial to humanize your content" with something like "let's make your content sound more human." If you are generally a person that speaks in an informal kind of way, translate it into your writing because it will make a big difference. The next thing is to use storytelling techniques well. Things like metaphors, things like analogies. Saying AI writing is like a well oiled machine. It works, but it needs a human touch to really shine. This works because authentic language and these types of analogies helps the content feel personal, it is more relatable, and it allows users to understand the message you're trying to pass. Without these types of analogies, it might be that you're thinking about one thing and the reader is thinking about something else, and you're not on the same page. So using these metaphors, these analogies, makes it easier to be on the same page. Now, let's speak about the critical adjustment that you must do, and that is emotional connection. Most people simply miss this. They think that AI content will somehow have the right emotional cues. But in general, and without doing anything to that output, AI content will lack this type of emotional type of cue. AI, again, is data driven. So it struggles with emotions, it struggles with empathy. And that is a big thing. For example, AI might say consistency matters for content success. A human might say consistency makes all the difference between being forgotten or being unforgettable. It's tough to get AI to say something like the latter. As a human, you can add that, or you can get AI to use that type of language. So If you, if I wanted to turn up the empathy from the current score, which is a 4 out of 10, to a 10 out of 10, how would you change the output? It is a very useful trick that I learned a few months ago. So here's the original at 10 out of 10 empathy. Have you ever felt crushed by the weight of cold corporate language? Your heart sinks each time you have to write another soulless email. John understands your pain deeply. As CEO of JetPoint's Dynamics, he watched his team spirit dim with every mechanical memo. His morning mirrors yours. Panic rising as he searches for his keys, stomach tight with board meeting anxiety. His phone flashes with harsh market numbers. Each notification feels like another wall between him and real connection. But then there's Winston, his cat, moving with gentle grace, a reminder to breathe, to slow down. Sunlight touches the penthouse walls like hope. Birds, bird songs carry memories of simpler times. Again, it's much more enjoyable as a read. It's much more empathetic, and I love that it feels that much easier to go through. Another thing to consider when it comes to emotions is to use words that spark curiosity, empathy, or even excitement. Saying something like, "You won't believe how easy this trick is." So, this is curiosity. Something like, "I get it." Writing can feel overwhelming sometimes. So, that is empathy. And then there's excitement. This method will transform the way you write forever. When you use these three emotions, you get reaction to your text. And this will make the text feel more human. It's also important to balance things out, right? You can take things way too far and come across as you're trying to be too human, which then again feels unnatural. So you can go too far, but most people are not even close to going that far, which is an important point to think about. If we look back at this right here, I think this is at the right amount of human, so to speak. If I were to take it up another notch, so instead of 10 out of 10, I say now make it 100 out of 10 in terms of empathy. I think this might be a bit too much. Te- Tears well up in your eyes as another empty corporate email ends in your inbox. The words blur together, meaningless, hollow, crushing your spirit with every automated response. John stops quietly at his desk, overwhelmed by the walls he's built with robotic language. Each impersonal memo feels like another brick between him and his team's beating hearts. His trembling hands search for keys. So yeah, this is, I don't know, a bit too much. What beautiful symphony could your words create if you let your heart sink through them? So in this case, I think that would be a bit, yeah, way too much over the top. Now, in this video, I've given you a framework that you can immediately implement. When you implement this framework, your content will be more human, even if the foundations are created by AI. So my suggestion to you would be to try this framework in your next piece of content and see how much more personal it all feels. The next time you generate AI content, test this and test this instantly. If you found this video useful, hit the like and subscribe button so you don't miss any future strategies on AI, automation, and the like. And implement this strategy, implement this framework. Let me know how it goes in the comments below, and I'll speak to you in the next video.